The Last Guardian. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Guardian Station Alpha, her eyes fixed on the swirling blue marble of Earth below. 200 years had passed since the Great Ascension, when most of humanity chose to evolve beyond their physical forms. She was one of the few who remained behind, a guardian tasked with watching over humanity's cradle and helping guide younger civilizations that might follow in their footsteps. The station's AI chimed softly. "Guardian Chen, I've detected an anomaly in the Kuiper Belt. The energy signature matches nothing in our databases." Sarah's augmented consciousness immediately connected with the station's sensors, processing the raw data directly. The anomaly pulsed with a rhythm that sent chills down her spine, a deep, ancient pattern that seemed to whisper of things better left forgotten. "Cross-reference with the ancestral archives," she commanded, her cybernetic implants glowing with a subtle blue light. The archives contained the accumulated knowledge of humanity before their ascension, including warnings about threats they'd faced in their journey to the stars. "Processing." The AI responded. "Warning. Archive access requires Omega-level clearance for this query." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Only the most dangerous information required Omega-level clearance. She pressed her palm against the nearest interface panel, allowing the station's systems to verify her identity at the deepest level possible. Her consciousness brushed against the quantum-encrypted barriers of the archives, and for a moment, she felt the weight of countless generations of human knowledge pressing against her mind. The archives opened, and with them came a flood of memories that weren't her own. She saw through the eyes of the first human explorers who ventured beyond the solar system, witnessed their wonder at discovering they weren't alone in the universe, and their horror at learning why so many alien civilizations had fallen silent. They called it the Void Chorus. Not a species or an empire, but something far older. It was a fundamental force of the universe that had achieved consciousness eons ago, an entity that fed on the mental energy of sentient beings. It would sleep for millennia, then awaken to feast on any civilizations that had evolved in its absence. The only way to survive its hunger was to either transcend physical form entirely or regress to a pre-sentient state. That was why humanity had ascended, not out of pure scientific achievement, but out of desperate necessity. The Void Chorus had begun to stir, and humanity had to choose: evolve or be devoured. But they hadn't simply fled. They'd left behind the Guardians, equipped with technology and knowledge to help guide other species when the threat returned. Sarah pulled back from the archives, her hands trembling. The energy signature in the Kuiper Belt matched the historical records perfectly. After 2 centuries of slumber, the Void Chorus was awakening once again. She turned her gaze to the long-range sensors, focusing on a particular sector of space. The Helios cluster, home to a young civilization of beings humans had nicknamed the Resonance for their ability to communicate through controlled electromagnetic pulses. They were just beginning to explore their local solar system, filled with the same wonder and drive that had once pushed humanity to the stars. They would be the first targets when the Void Chorus fully awakened. Sarah's implants hummed as she initiated the Guardian protocol, sending quantum-encrypted signals to the handful of other Guardian stations scattered throughout human space. Each was staffed by a single Guardian, watching and waiting for this very moment. "Send an emergency signal to the Ascended," she commanded the station's eye. "Priority Omega." The Void Chorus returns. As the signal transmitted through channels of reality she could barely comprehend, Sarah began preparing Guardian Station Alpha for war. She had no illusion that she could fight the Void Chorus directly. That was beyond even the Guardian's capabilities. But she could buy time, gather intelligence, and most importantly, help the Resonance survive. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not just the technology they'd left behind, or the knowledge preserved in the archives, but the promise that no species would have to face the darkness alone. The Guardians were living proof that humanity remembered its roots, that even after transcending their physical forms, they still cared about those who followed in their footsteps. The station's systems came alive around her, centuries-old defense systems awakening from their slumber. As she worked, Sarah noticed her reflection in the observation window, her aging face illuminated by the glow of Earth below. She might have been able to extend her life indefinitely through technology, but she'd chosen to allow herself to age naturally, to maintain that connection to her human origins. Signal sent, the AI announced. No immediate response detected. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. The Ascended operated on different timescales now, and even with the gravity of the threat, it might take them time to respond. That was why the Guardians existed, to act in those crucial moments when immediate action was needed. Plot a course to the Helios cluster, she commanded, and begin preparing a first contact package for the resonance. They need to know what's coming. As Guardian Station Alpha began to move, breaking orbit for the first time in decades, Sarah took one last look at Earth. Humanity had evolved beyond the need for a homeworld, but they'd never forgotten where they came from. Now it was her turn to prove that humanity's greatest legacy wasn't their technology or their ascension, but their determination to help others survive. The station accelerated, and Earth dwindled behind her. Ahead lay the unknown, a young civilization in need of guidance, and an ancient horror stirring from its slumber. Sarah Chen, the last guardian of Saul, allowed herself a small smile. This was what she'd been preparing for all these years. The real work was just beginning. Echoes of the past. The journey to the Helios cluster took 3 weeks, even with Guardian Station Alpha's advanced propulsion systems. Sarah spent the time studying everything the archives contained about the resonance, the crystalline beings whose civilization was about to face its greatest test. The station's long-range sensors painted a detailed picture of their homeworld, Helios Prime. Spires of living crystal reached toward the stars, each structure a combination of natural growth and deliberate engineering. The resonants themselves appeared as clusters of translucent crystals that pulsed with internal light, using electromagnetic fields to move and communicate. Multiple ships detected on intercept course. The station's AI announced as they entered the outer reaches of the Helios system. Resonant design. Primitive fusion drives. They appear to be a patrol fleet. Sarah watched the approaching vessels through the station's sensors. They were beautiful in their way, crystalline structures wrapped around cores of contained plasma. Primitive by the standards of Guardian technology, but elegant in their design. The resonance had done well for a species barely 2 centuries into their space age. Broadcast the first contact package on all frequencies, she commanded. Let's hope they're in a mood to listen. The package was a careful compilation of mathematical proofs, physical constants, and simple pictographic messages, universal concepts that any spacefaring civilization should recognize. It had worked countless times before, when humanity first reached out to other species, before the Void Chorus forced their ascension. The resonant ships slowed their approach, and for several tense minutes, there was no response. Then a burst of electromagnetic energy washed over the station, carrying with it patterns that the AI quickly translated into words. We receive your greeting, unknown vessel. Your method of communication suggests knowledge of our nature. State your purpose in our system. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the crucial moment. I am Guardian Sarah Chen, representative of humanity and keeper of Saul. I come with warning and offer of aid. A threat approaches that my people have faced before, one that your civilization must prepare for if it wishes to survive. There was another pause, longer this time. Sarah could almost feel the confusion and concern radiating from the resonant ships. Finally, they responded. We detect no other vessels in our space. What threat do you speak of? Instead of answering directly, Sarah had the station transmit sensor data showing the anomaly in the Kuiper Belt, along with historical records of similar readings from humanity's encounters with the Void Chorus. She included footage from the First Contact War, when humanity initially tried to fight the entity directly. The images of entire fleets being reduced to clouds of mindless particles were horrifying, but necessary to convey the gravity of the situation. The resonant ships drew closer, their crystalline structures resonating with patterns that the AI translated as intense discussion. Finally, a single ship approached the station while the others maintained their defensive positions. "Your warning is troubling," the resonance transmitted. "Our deep space sensors have detected similar anomalies, but we did not understand their significance. How did your species survive this threat?" "Most of us didn't, not in our original form," Sarah replied. "The majority of humanity chose to ascend beyond physical form. I am one of the few who remained behind, tasked with helping other species face this threat." She transmitted more data, showing the final days before the Great Ascension. The massive orbital rings that had channeled unimaginable energies, the gradual disappearance of billions as they transcended their physical forms, and the establishment of the Guardian stations. She also included records of how humanity had helped other species survive in the centuries since, either by guiding them toward their own forms of ascension, or by teaching them to shield their consciousness from the Void Chorus's hunger. The resonant ship's crystalline structure pulsed with new patterns, fear mixed with determination. "You offer to help us achieve this ascension." "That is one option," Sarah confirmed, "but it must be your choice. Some species have found other paths. What matters is that you understand the nature of what's coming and begin preparing now, while there's still time." The electromagnetic pulses from the resonant ship took on a more formal pattern. "I am Nexus Guide Helion, lead explorer of the Fifth Fleet. Our council must be informed of this threat. Will you accompany us to Helios Prime to present your evidence directly?" Sarah smiled. This was proceeding better than she dared hope. "Of course. That's why I came." As Guardian Station Alpha followed the resonant fleet toward their homeworld, Sarah received the first response from the Ascended. It wasn't words so much as impressions, carrying both approval of her actions and a warning. The Void Chorus was awakening faster than expected. They would provide what aid they could, but the limitations they'd accepted during their ascension meant that direct intervention was impossible. Sarah watched the crystalline cities of Helios Prime grow larger in her view screen. She had perhaps 6 months to help prepare an entire civilization for the greatest threat they'd ever faced. The resonance would need to advance centuries in mere months if they hoped to survive. But they wouldn't face this challenge alone. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not just knowledge or technology, but presence. The promise that no species would have to face the darkness of space without allies. As Guardian Station Alpha settled into orbit around Helios Prime, Sarah began preparing her presentation for the Resonant Council. The real challenge was about to begin, and she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was what humanity had become, not conquerors or mere observers, but guardians and teachers, helping to forge a galaxy where cooperation meant survival. The crystalline spires of Helios Prime sparkled below, and Sarah Chen, last guardian of Sol, prepared to fulfill humanity's promise once again. The return. The great assembly hall of Helios Prime sparkled with the combined light of 3,000 resonant elders, their crystalline forms arranged in concentric circles that rose toward the vaulted ceiling. Sarah stood in the center, her voice carrying through the electromagnetic translators as she finished presenting the evidence of humanity's past encounters with the Void Chorus. "The choice before you is not an easy one," she concluded, her augmented vision taking in the subtle variations in the light patterns emanating from her audience. "But it must be made quickly. The Void Chorus grows stronger with each passing day." The hall erupted in a cascade of electromagnetic pulses so intense that the translators struggled to keep up. The resonants were divided, some arguing for immediate action, others insisting that they needed more time to verify Sarah's claims. Their debate created sheets of light that danced across the crystalline walls, a beautiful but chaotic display of their turmoil. Nexus Guide Helion, who had become her strongest ally among the resonants, pulsed a pattern requesting silence. "The Guardian speaks truth. Our deep space arrays have confirmed the approach of the anomaly she warns us about. We must decide. Do we attempt ascension, or do we seek another path?" Before any could respond, Sarah's implants flared with an urgent signal from Guardian Station Alpha. "Multiple quantum distortions detected," the AI reported. Signature matches archived records of void chorus manifestation. Estimated arrival: 6 hours. Sarah's blood ran cold. It's too soon, she broadcast, cutting through the renewed chaos in the assembly hall. The predictions gave us months, not hours. The assembly's panic manifested as violent pulses of light that threatened to overload the hall's electromagnetic systems. Sarah raised her hands, her implants projecting a calming resonance that slowly brought order back to the chamber. "We no longer have the luxury of debate," she announced. "The void chorus comes now. But there is another option, one that humanity prepared for centuries ago." She interfaced directly with the station's systems, projecting a hologram that filled the center of the hall. It showed a massive structure hidden in interstellar space, far from any star system. "This is the Bulwark," she explained, "a sanctuary created by humanity before their ascension, designed to shield developing civilizations from the void chorus. We can evacuate your people there, but we must act now." The first elder of the resonance, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with ancient wisdom, moved forward. "You would have us abandon our home, everything we have built." "Not abandon, preserve," Sarah corrected. "The Bulwark isn't just a shelter. It's a place where your civilization can continue to grow and develop, protected from the void chorus until you're ready to face it, or until you choose your own path to ascension." More signals from Guardian Station Alpha interrupted them. The AI's voice carried an urgency Sarah had never heard before. Multiple quantum ruptures detected throughout the system. The void chorus is manifesting faster than any previously recorded encounter. Sarah made a decision. She activated protocols that had lain dormant for centuries, sending quantum-encrypted signals to every Guardian station in human space. "This is Guardian Chen, initiating Protocol Omega. The void chorus has evolved new capabilities. All Guardians converge on the Helios system. We make our stand here." She turned back to the assembly. "You have perhaps an hour to evacuate as many of your people as possible to the Bulwark. My fellow Guardians are coming, but they will take time to arrive. I will remain here with volunteers to slow the void chorus's advance." The first elder's crystalline form pulsed with a pattern that the translator rendered as deep respect. "You would sacrifice yourself for us. Why?" "Because that's what humanity promised when we created the Guardian stations," Sarah replied. "That no species would face this threat alone, as we once did. Now choose quickly who will evacuate and who will stand with me." The next 40 minutes passed in a blur of organized chaos. Sarah coordinated with her station's AI to create quantum tunnels linking Helios Prime to the Bulwark, while the resonant military mobilized to protect the evacuation. Millions of crystalline beings streamed through the tunnels, carrying with them the seeds of their civilization's future. As the last evacuation tunnel stabilized, Sarah received the signal she'd been waiting for. The other Guardians had arrived, 5 stations identical to her own, taking up defensive positions around Helios Prime. Each was crewed by a single Guardian, men and women who, like her, had chosen to remain behind when humanity ascended. Guardian Chen, a familiar voice came through her implants. "Guardian Rodriguez of Europa Station reporting. The others are here too. We brought some friends." Sarah's sensors detected new quantum distortions, different from those heralding the void chorus. Space itself seemed to ripple, and through those ripples came ships of impossible geometry. The ascended, manifesting in forms that Sarah's human mind could barely comprehend. "We received your warning." Another voice spoke in her mind, this one carrying echoes of humanity's transcended state. "We cannot fight directly, but we can help shield the evacuation. The resonance must survive. They have a crucial role to play in what's to come." The void chorus was visible now, even to normal human sight, a darkness between the stars that moved with malevolent purpose. Sarah Chen, last Guardian of Sol, stood at her station's control center and prepared for battle. Around her, humanity's past and future had united, the Guardians who remembered what it meant to be human, and the Ascended who had become something more. The real test was about to begin. Trial by fire. The void between stars rippled like disturbed water as the void chorus manifested fully in the Helios system. Sarah watched through Guardian Station Alpha's quantum sensors as reality itself seemed to tear, revealing something that had existed in the spaces between spaces since the universe was young. All Guardians, defensive formation Delta, she commanded, her station moving into position alongside its 5 siblings. The massive structures formed a hexagon around Helios Prime, their ancient weapons charging with energies that hadn't been unleashed in centuries. Evacuation status, Sarah asked, her implants processing multiple data streams simultaneously. 87% of the resonant population has reached the bulwark, Guardian Rodriguez reported. The Ascended are maintaining the quantum tunnels, but the Void Chorus is attempting to disrupt them. The enemy's true form became visible, not the simple darkness they'd expected, but a lattice of anti-light that bent space around it. Within that lattice, Sarah's enhanced senses detected fragments of countless civilizations that had been consumed over the eons, their consciousness trapped in a state of eternal hunger. New data incoming, her station's AI announced. The entity's structure has evolved since our last encounter, detecting elements of technologies from at least 30 different species, all somehow integrated into its fundamental matrix. Sarah's blood ran cold as understanding dawned. It's been learning. Every civilization it consumed, it kept their knowledge, their innovations. It's not just feeding anymore, it's evolving. As if in response to her realization, the Void Chorus struck. Beams of anti-light lanced out, targeting the quantum tunnels that were still evacuating the remaining resonance. The Ascended ships moved to intercept, their impossible geometries warping to absorb the attack, but even they were pushed back by the entity's enhanced power. Guardian Chen, one of the Ascended, communicated directly to her mind. We've analyzed the entity's new structure. It's not just consuming civilizations anymore. It's incorporating them. The consciousness it traps remain aware, forced to help it adapt and grow. Then we end this now, Sarah declared. All Guardians, initiate Protocol Terminus. Full power to primary weapons. The 6 Guardian stations hummed with energy as weapons designed by humanity at the height of their pre-ascension technology came online. Beams of concentrated quantum energy lanced out, striking the Void Chorus's lattice structure at precisely calculated points. For a moment, it seemed to work. The entity's structure began to destabilize, portions of its lattice collapsing in on themselves. But then it adapted, its pattern shifting to absorb and redirect the energy back at them. Direct hit on Europa Station, Guardian Rodriguez called out. Guardian Evans is hurt, but the station's AI is maintaining defensive protocols. Sarah watched in horror as the Void Chorus began to split into multiple smaller entities, each one targeting a different Guardian station. The Ascended ships moved to help, but they were limited by the rules they'd accepted during their transformation. They could defend, but not directly attack. New quantum signatures detected, her AI reported suddenly. Origin: unknown. Space riveled again, but differently this time. Through tears in reality came new ships, their design unlike anything Sarah had seen before. They moved with impossible grace, their weapons firing beams of pure crystalline energy that the Void Chorus couldn't absorb or redirect. This is Nexus Guide Helion, a familiar voice transmitted. The First Elder's final gift is delivered. What you see are ships designed by the ancient resonance, powered by the same crystalline technology that forms our bodies. We found their plans in our deepest archives, but never had the power to build them. Until now. Sarah understood. The Ascended's presence, the quantum energies being thrown around, it had jump-started the crystalline technology, allowing the resonance to access powers they hadn't been ready for. Just as humanity had once been pushed to advance by necessity, the resonance were evolving before her eyes. All Guardians, synchronize your weapons with the resonant ships, she commanded. Match your quantum frequencies to their crystalline energy signatures. Let's show this thing what happens when civilizations work together instead of consuming each other. The battle that followed would be recorded in the archives as one of the most significant encounters with the Void Chorus in galactic history. Guardian stations and resonant ships moved in perfect coordination, their combined technologies creating effects that neither could have achieved alone. The Ascended maintained their defensive screen, protecting the last evacuation tunnels while the others pressed the attack. The Void Chorus fought back with terrible power, its adapted technologies creating weapons that could have shattered planets. But it had never faced an alliance like this. The wisdom of the Ascended, the determination of the Guardians, and the innovative spirit of the Resonance, all working as one. Sarah's station took a direct hit, alarms blaring as multiple systems began to fail. But she held her position, coordinating the battle through her neural implants, even as her physical form was battered by the station's violent movements. Through it all, one thought kept her focused. This was what humanity had stayed behind for. Not just to watch and warn, but to stand alongside younger races in their moment of greatest need. As the battle reached its crescendo, Sarah noticed something unexpected in her sensor readings. The Void Chorus's lattice structure was changing, not from damage, but from within. The countless consciousnesses it had trapped were stirring, inspired by the sight of 3 different species fighting together. They're waking up, she broadcasted to all channels. All the civilizations it consumed. They are beginning to resist. The entity's perfect lattice began to fragment as its captive minds fought for freedom. The resonant ships pressed their attack, their crystalline energy finding the weak points created by this internal rebellion. The Guardians followed suit, their quantum weapons precisely targeting each new vulnerability. In that moment, Sarah Chen understood why the Ascended had been so insistent that the Resonance survive. They hadn't just been saving one species, they had been setting up the first domino in a chain reaction that could change everything. The Void Chorus began to retreat, its structure compromised from both within and without. But Sarah knew this wasn't the end, just the beginning of a new phase in an ancient conflict. The entity would return, probably stronger than ever. But next time, the galaxy would be ready. As the quantum distortions began to fade, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had made the right choice all those centuries ago, not just in creating the Guardians, but in showing the galaxy that there was strength in unity, power in cooperation, and hope in standing together against the darkness. Legacy of Light. 3 months after the Battle of Helios Prime, Sarah Chen stood in a new chamber, deep within the crystalline spires of the bulwark. The massive sanctuary had been transformed by its resonant inhabitants, its formerly austere corridors now glowing with patterns of living light that pulsed in harmony with its residents' thoughts. The integration of crystalline technology with the bulwark systems is proceeding faster than expected. Nexus Guide Helion reported, his form shimmering with pride. What humanity built as a shelter, we are transforming into something more. A beacon for other species who will face the same trial we did. Sarah nodded, her neural implants connecting directly with the bulwark's enhanced sensors. The sanctuary was no longer just a hiding place. It was becoming a center of innovation and cooperation. Resonant engineers worked alongside Guardian AIs, combining their technologies in ways neither species had imagined possible. We've detected 12 other civilizations that will likely encounter the Void Chorus within the next century, she said. Thanks to what we learned in the battle, we can better prepare them. The chamber's walls rippled as one of the Ascended manifested, its presence gentler than before. What happened at Helios Prime changed everything. The Void Chorus was wounded, yes, but more importantly, it was shown a truth it had never confronted before, that cooperation breeds strength greater than consumption. Sarah turned to face the ethereal being that had once been human. The civilizations trapped within it. Have you made contact? Some, the Ascended confirmed. Their resistance continues, encouraged by what they witnessed. The entity's perfect unity is compromised. It must now contend with the very consciousness it sought to consume. A fitting punishment, we think, for something that denied others their freedom for so long. Helion's crystalline form pulsed with a pattern that the translator rendered as thoughtful curiosity. You knew this would happen. The Ascended, the Guardians, you knew that my people's crystalline technology would be key to fighting the Void Chorus. That's why you chose to help us instead of simply warning us to flee or ascend. We suspected, Sarah corrected. Humanity learned long ago that every species brings something unique to the galaxy. The Void Chorus's strength came from consuming those differences. Our strength comes from combining them, allowing each civilization to contribute its own innovations while maintaining its identity. She walked to a viewing window that looked out over vast chambers where millions of residents had made their new home. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving, their culture evolving in new directions inspired by their recent experiences. That's why we created the Guardian Stations, she continued. Not just to warn or protect, but to serve as bridges between species. To show that advancement doesn't have to mean leaving others behind. The Ascended's form shifted, taking on a more human-like appearance. And that is why we chose to limit ourselves when we transcended. We could have become like the Void Chorus, consuming all in our path. Instead, we chose to remain connected to our origins, to help guide those who would follow. Sarah's implants pinged with new data. The other Guardian stations had completed their repairs and were resuming their positions throughout human space. But something was different now. The Resonants had offered to send some of their own people to serve alongside each Guardian, combining their perspectives and technologies. We've received the first transmissions from the civilizations we detected, Helion announced, his crystalline form brightening. 3 have already accepted our offer of contact and cooperation. They're eager to learn, to prepare, to add their own strengths to our alliance. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of centuries lift from her shoulders. The role of Guardian was changing, evolving just as humanity had. No longer were they solitary watchers waiting to warn of danger. They were becoming active bridges between species, fostering connections that would make the galaxy stronger. The Void Chorus will return, the Ascended warned. Stronger, perhaps, having learned from its defeat. But it will find a different galaxy waiting for it. One where species stand together, where differences are celebrated rather than consumed. Let it come, Sarah replied, her voice firm. Every civilization it faces will be stronger for the ones that came before. Every battle will teach us more about cooperation, about combining our strengths. That's humanity's true legacy, not the technology we left behind, but the lesson that we are all stronger together than alone. As if in response to her words, the bulwark's crystalline walls pulsed with new patterns of light. Resonant children, their forms still growing and changing, played in corridors designed by ascended humans and maintained by guardian Aias. In their innocent joy, Sarah saw the future they were building, one where the darkness between stars would never again threaten a civilization that stood alone. The next generation will face their own challenges, Helion observed, but they will face them together, with the combined wisdom of all who came before them. Sarah Chen, guardian of humanity and bridge between species, watched the lights of cooperation spread through the bulwark. The war wasn't over, but its nature had changed. The Void Chorus sought to consume diversity, to force all consciousness into its singular pattern. But the galaxy had found another way, unity through cooperation, strength through diversity, and hope through the connections forged between different peoples reaching for the stars together. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not salvation, but solidarity. Not protection, but partnership. The Guardian stations would remain, not as solitary watchers, but as bridges between civilizations. And in that role, they would ensure that the light of consciousness in all its diverse forms would continue to shine against the darkness between stars. The legacy of humanity lived on, not in the power they had achieved, but in the connections they had forged. And in those connections lay the seeds of a future brighter than any single species could create alone.